Why did you decide to go on an Enneagram course?
Because I know you, Miranda. We decided to go together. Friends had been talking about the Enneagram for years, and I had not really been listening to them. I did not really want to look at it. But then we were reading stuff together, and people were talking so positively about the Enneagram. I thought, let's just go and see what it's about. Why did you go?
I think it was the book we were reading that introduced me to the Enneagram, and also we were listening to John Mark Coleman,
You were.
and he was saying that everybody needed to do the Enneagram, and I think that's when I pricked up my ears. So
we went together.
Yeah, we did. We went on our first weekend course. What were your first impressions?
Well, I went having done the test and finding out I thought I knew who I was. So I quite enjoyed it because I was comfortable in thinking that I was a peacemaker, and I thought I'd won the jackpot. So I thought, well, on the Enneagram, I'm obviously quite good at doing this, and I know. So yes, I enjoyed the course, but I thought that once you found out your type or your number, that was it, and that was as far as I'd go with it.
Yeah. So my experiences were slightly different because I too did the test and I came out as 4 different types, which I thought I was going to be the first person who could be 4 types. And it did take me most of the weekend to work out that I was a 1. And I think I resisted that because unlike the type that you are, the 1s don't have quite such a good sort of publicity. People say that 1s are quite difficult to live with and difficult to work with. The 1s are known as the perfectionists.
But we're both immediately going into details of types.
Yes.
What are these types? What does the Enneagram mean?
Well, Enneagram is actually, Ennea is 9 and gram is a chart. So it's 9 different types on a chart, 1 to 9, funny enough. And when I first started looking into the Enneagram, I thought it was quite complex. But actually, one of the things that I found that since my initial thoughts about the Enneagram, it's actually simplified a lot of things for me. And I found it really helpful because a lot of things that I've never really understood about myself have been clarified. So it's been really helpful. And but I wondered, you said that you settled into your type very quickly.
Yes.
Whereas, is that always the case?
No, I think my understanding of myself it's not the case. I don't find it very easy to understand myself, but just looking at the description given to my Enneagram type, it was a bit like having a mirror put up in front of me or a light being switched on. Obviously you always live inside yourself, and then suddenly you see this description and you think, oh, I am like that. So I said earlier, I think that I'm a peacemaker, and peacemakers are good, but in my case I'm a peacemaker because I don't like conflict, and I've never liked conflict, but I have never sat back and realised that and understood what goes on inside when I'm facing conflict and how I respond. So having the details of the Enneagram has given me a choice how I respond. I've been able to see my response in situations and think, am I happy with that? Is that good? Is that worth pursuing, or do I need to change how I am towards it?
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. I one of the things I found that when we first started doing the Enneagram was the terminology was quite complex.
Yes.
And I think one of the things that certainly from the feedback we've had on for our courses is that we've tried to make things sort of as simple and as accessible as possible to try and simplify it.
Yes, I agree. It's hard to understand when you start, and I think we have worked hard to try and make that more usable in everyday life.
Yeah. You said that it's helped you because you have a better understanding of yourself, and now you can make choices. So, which is not your, which is different to your first impression when you thought, okay, I'm a 9, and that's that.
Yes.
In what ways have you found the Enneagram has enabled you or facilitated your growth?
I think to start off with, I think many people do the Enneagram and they just want to put themselves into a box and they think that's it, that's me, that's who I am, and move on. What knowing more about the Enneagram has helped is it is paths for transformation, understanding who you are, understanding that as a child I put in place mechanisms for coping strategies.
Yes.
And that often came out through stress or situations of trauma, and that I've just grown in this way of responding, and that I don't always have to respond like that. I'm not going to change my type.
No.
Once I've identified that, I'm not going to be somebody else.
No.
But I can take who I am and I can bring out the benefits from it.
Yeah. Yes, I think that's really interesting, and one of the things that I found very helpful is that each type has default behaviour and thinking.
Yeah.
So they're known as mental fixations and ruling passions. And for the 1, they all of them for all types sound quite negative, but actually I recognised that was going on inside me and had been going on inside me sort of all my adult life, that these default mechanisms, which are our coping strategies, had been present. And I think once I recognised that and then also sort of reflected back on where they came from, I've got very used to them, and I feel a lot more comfortable, whereas before these default patterns were quite just uncomfortable for me. Now I realise they're part of me, and I realise that when I'm stressed or particular triggers, that they arise, and now I know how to manage them a lot better.
Yes.
And I also have learnt to go to what we call the place of security, which is for the 1 is actually to be more fun and to be more spontaneous, not always to think about working, but to take time out and relax. So for the 9, where do you go when you're
Well, I
secure?
go to the place of a 3, which is actually a performer, because for me, my place of stress is to worry and be anxious, and so I've learnt to just step up and just say, you can do this, whereas a lot of the time I'd hide from doing it, just like this interview.
Yes.
Hid from doing it. So who do you think then the Enneagram is suitable for?
I think it's suitable for anybody, any adult who wants to, first of all, know more about themselves, but also who wants to grow, whether that's spiritual growth or psychological growth or both together. For me, the last 2.5 years have been amazing in terms of my transformation and my dealing with stress, and also identifying this lovely place of security. So I think the Enneagram is suitable for anybody. It's good for people in their 20s because they're going to get a head start. You know, I really wish I'd done this in my 20s.
Yes, I agree with that. I think if you could find out in your 20s or 30s your mechanisms of coping, that's really so helpful.
Yeah.
It's helpful now for us to know.
But it's also very, very appropriate for anybody who's in the later stages of their lives to, to make the most of that time. So I don't think you're never too old to do the Enneagram either.
No.
So anybody who's interested. Just one final question: I'm interested to know what made you set up the Enneagram in practice, because I hear that it was your idea.
My idea.
Yes,
I don't think it
your
was
idea.
My idea. So we were going to run a one-day course,
Yeah.
and then the world had a pandemic,
Yeah.
and suddenly we had this information, and what could we do? And so Enneagram in practice was born, because we could use Zoom calls, and we could introduce people in the comfort of their own home to the Enneagram, something that they would probably never have heard of, or were not going to go on a course that was going to cost a lot of money. It was an opportunity to help people, to introduce people to the Enneagram. And we were able to do it without charging for ourselves. We're not making any money from this, but it was a great way of raising funds for the Beer Harris Memorial Trust. For this is covering mental health, our mental health, who we are, but it's also through donations helping others.
Yeah, brilliant. And have you run many courses in the last year?
We have, amazingly. We've run a number of courses. We now offer 4 courses, 4 2-hour Zoom courses, and we've run online day courses, and in September we're going to run an in-person 2 courses, a weekend courses.
Fantastic. Brilliant. Good. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
For your great idea.
Thank you.
And for all the fun that we've had doing it.
Yes.
Good.